The last time we caught up, you just bought the axe from The Shining. Has there been anything else added to the collection since?
I've been getting I'm always getting movie posters here and there.
Yeah.
A few minor pieces. I'm working on a major piece from major film that I'm terribly underrepresented on. Uh, but it requires a huge amount of trade material.
Yes.
So this is a deal that I've been working on for last year, and the amount of trade material that's just gone back and forth between us, just for me to get this one poster, it's complicated,
I can imagine.
and I don't expect to get the poster till next year once the final trade pieces are done,
Yeah.
and we're on schedule. But it's a mind blowing poster, and I didn't even know it existed until about a year ago,
Right.
and I'm really happy about it. And yeah, you'll be hearing about it
Well,
because
we
it's.
hope so.
What's that?
Hope so, man. Now, the Black Album, when that term comes up, what's the first thing that comes to your mind over the last 30 years?
Guitar solo of Enter Sandman.
It's not something that you get sick of, is it? Like, it can't be. I know you wrote the main riff in one form and then Lars kind of altered it a little bit, but is it something that you thought, not 100% sure how our fans that have followed us from Kill 'Em All right through to Justice are going to take this? Have those sort of sticking by your guns attitude paid off and made you go those big gambles music-wise since the Black Album?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's funny because when we finished the Black Album, it was like, this is a real departure from our previous album. I better prepare myself, for any sort of like disappointment or letdown, with our fans or with album sales or ticket sales or whatnot. I mean, I was ready, because I knew it was so much of a departure,
Yeah.
but we had no idea, it would become the album that it has become. There's certain things that only happen when the circumstances are right, the situation is right, the timing is right, and that for us was the Black Album.
Now, I know that there was a lot of, like, not just production-wise, writing-wise, and just sonic-wise, sounded completely different. But what about solos? Did they change from the previous four albums in the Black Album, or did they just go, Kirk, do your thing, guitar player of the year, just do your thing?
I wanted to have a more sort of like soulful approach. I wanted to get back to using more pentatonic scales because on the previous albums I'd been playing a very modal approach. I like the pentatonic sound. I wanted a more bluesy kind of feel for all the solos, really. And we were just coming out of a trend or a phase where guitar players had to like show how good they were, how limitless their guitar playing capabilities were in every single song, in every single solo, And I was a part of that too, and I contributed to that too, like to a certain degree on Justice for All.
Yeah.
I just like, I was already kind of like, I haven't had enough of it, and I was ready to just be me.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get back to being me.
Yeah.
I really felt the pressure to like overplay on Injustice for All.
Which, thanks to year and a half, we got to see the struggle that you went through for certain solos. Would you say that The Unforgiven is the best solo you've ever done?
Well, it's certainly one of the best improvised solos in the studio. I mean, not to mention is probably one of the very first I improvised from beginning to end. I've not really had done that before. I'd always composed at least half of the solo or knew exactly what I was going to play.
Yeah.
But for that particular solo on that particular day, Bob Rock said, "You're not doing your homework." That's not true. I did my homework. It's just that what I had did not work.
Yeah.
It worked at home, but it did not work in the studio. And I had to throw it out. Out the window it went. I was just kind of like standing there bare, naked, no idea what to do, no ideas. And so when I faced it, that I was like, okay, I got to improvise, and that wasn't a problem, but we're about to record a solo.
Yeah.
And so Bob said, 1 second. He made a minor tweak in the sound, made a minor tweak and added a little delay. And then I was like, all right, I like the sound of this. I like the feel of this. Hit record, and then that guitar solo came out.
Yeah.
And I think, I haven't seen the year and a half in a while, but I think the camera caught a large portion of what it actually ended up being on record.
Yeah. Now, when the Black Album came out, a lot of people accused Bob Rock of destroying Metallica, but can you confirm the truth is it was you guys that went to him going, look, we want to do less intricate, 8/9 timing and 11-minute epics, like we actually want to cut it down to something a little more basic. Is that true?
Well, yeah, I mean, what people have to realize, and that is a very unfair sort of like, kind of like thing to put on Bob. But what people have to understand is that 95% of the material was already written before he came into the picture. I mean, the songs were already sounding like that. And they already had the arrangements. They already were more grooving, more bouncy, more soulful, shorter, simpler. All that was already in place and had been in place for months.
Yeah.
And then Bob Rock came into the picture. He made maybe 1 or 2 changes in the arrangements, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, Bob was originally going to mix the album, and then he was the one that put his hand up and said, no, I want to produce it. Was Fleming coming back to produce the Black Album, or were you going to go with a completely different producer again?
We were pretty we're pretty adamant about moving on from Fleming.
Yeah.
Because we thought we had gone as far as we could go with Fleming on Injustice for All, and we wanted to get as far away from that sound and that entire album concept as possible.
Yeah.
And so a response to Injustice for All is the Black Album, in terms of like sound, in terms of like arrangements, in terms of like feel and groove, in terms of playing, everything is almost diametrically opposed to what it was on on Injustice for All. Yeah. The Black Album happened because of Injustice for All.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
And you can even put it in reverse, because of Justice for All, there's a Black Album because of and it would, or if it wasn't for Injustice for All, there wouldn't be a Black Album.
Fantastic. Great answer, dude. Shit. With
That's true.
You know what I mean? With Enter Sandman, that was a very surprising first single because it goes against the grain of a lot of things that you've done before. What would have been your first pick for the first single if they said, Kirk, what are we releasing first before the album comes out?
Well, the riff for Sad But True had been around since the end of the Injustice for All tour, and that was like something we would jam on, just riff, here and there, and it was so catchy. I thought that was going to be the number one single, throughout the whole genesis and creation of the songs. I thought that was going to be the first single.
Yeah.
But then Enter Sandman came together with the new lyrics and James's new melodic approach, and it was pretty evident that Enter Sandman, Nothing Else Matters, and Sad But True were obvious singles.
The big ones. What would whose idea was it to slow it down? Because I've heard the demo of Sad But True, and it is a lot faster and almost sounds a lot more upbeat when it's going just that higher tempo, and then it was pulled right back. Was that something that you figured out in the studio? Was that Bob, or was it you guys?
No, we pulled it way back, you know.
Yeah.
For that just heavy, doomy kind of dirgy kind of, you know, thing. You know, we were really into that kind of thing at the time.
I love that. The Unforgiven, the another single off the Black Album, that it was almost like the dynamics got flipped around from all of your previous stuff. Was it more of an experimental song, like can we get away with this, The Unforgiven?
You know, I would say, you know, The Unforgiven was largely driven just by melody, you know? It was the chorus was a vocal melody that James had, that he picked out on the guitar, found the notes on the guitar, and it sounded so good.
Yeah. Just
as a standalone guitar part that's what it became.
Yeah. And
so, you know, that song is very, very driven to the intention was it to be kind of like, you know, a different kind of slow ballady kind of song, you know.
I'm astounded how great that all the songs off the Black Album, but The Unforgiven sounds on radio. It's still, there's nothing else that's really been put out there quite like that. You know what I mean?
Well, I'll let you know something, you know, that very personal with me and that song. Please. Is like when I first heard the chorus melody of it, I cried. It brought me to tears. It was so beautiful.
You have to sort of treat a song like that with it. Do you think now that you've said that's why The Unforgiven, that solo came out, because it was packed with that much emotion before you tackled it in the studio?
Yeah, and you know, my whole kind of like concept for the guitar player, I mean for the guitar solo, was to kind of play more uplifting, more positive kind of stuff, but it didn't work. It just didn't work. And so I went to a more kind of like somber sort of feel for this solo, and more sort of like intense sort of like a feel, and it worked. You know, yeah. The uplifting kind of thing, the hopeful uplifting kind of a more major sounding thing that I had is based around a major seventh chord. Didn't work.
That must have been so frustrating. I mean, how much time was spent on that one that you were preparing as opposed to the one that you got, you know, that you improvised in the studio?
Literally 15 minutes. Bob just looked at me. He just literally just looked at me. And, you know, he just shook his head. And he said, what are you trying to do? And, you know, during the entire recording of the Black Album, you have to understand that Bob and us, we had a working relationship.
Yeah.
It started at the very top, at the very beginning as a working relationship, and only over time became a friendly relationship, a real, you know, bonding sort of relationship. It was only after the Black Album that happened. So, you know, confrontation, you know, hostility, passive aggressiveness, it was everywhere. You know, and we were just every day we brought that to the studio and just kind of like projected it towards Bob. So, you know, when something didn't happen from his perspective, he was quick to like lay it on too.
Wow. I was going to say poor Bob, but then I'm like, nah, he's done quite well for himself, I think. He's kind of proven his chops as a producer.
Yeah.
Pardon me. Wherever I May Roam, very nomadic, which kind of fits the theme lyrically of the song. You know, you got the sitar on the start. I think there is a massive, is it a 12-string bass that hit at the start? Yeah, no, it's amazing.
Exactly.
So when you got time, or when you got an opportunity to do a solo which has kind of got a theme to it, right, an actual almost story category of being a nomad, traveling and things like that, did you go, all right, my solo is going to say this?
Well, what I try to do is just like I try to think about the mood of the song. Is it a song that has momentum? Is it a song that has atmosphere? Is it a song that's rhythmically dynamic? And then I look at the chords, and I look at the scales that the chords are suggesting. And when I heard that, I instantly thought, oh, Phrygian dominant, harmonic minor. I can play some really cool scales in this. Yeah. And then I was thinking, this is a song about, like you said, like a kind of nomadic gypsy sort of like existence, transient sort of existence. So I thought the solo has to sound like it's on the move,
yes. Yes.
On the move. And that was my approach, that's a great question, because a lot of times when I don't know what I'm going to play, I think of the feelings and emotions and scenarios in my mind, and that kind of helps where my fingers want to go, and it kind of helps my fingers find the right notes that it wants to feel. Amazing. And so it's the same thing with Through the Never. I mean, it's just like, wow, this is like, interplanetary space travel. and so the solo has to have a lot of propulsion. Yeah. And, I heard the opening lick in my head, and then I picked it out on my guitar and thought, man, that's like a lick straight out of like a 1950s rock and roll kind of guitar solo, but it fit. And it was exactly what I heard in my head, and it's what it needed, propulsion, just going straight up.
Yeah, perfect.
And so, yeah.
And finally, very quickly, because I know we've only got like 1 minute left, is it true that Nothing Else Matters? I mean, what can you say about that song that hasn't already been said? Was it true that it almost didn't make the Black Album, and it just hit 1 billion streams? So there's quite the dichotomy there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at the time, we had not created a ballad like that. It was a different dynamic for us. Yeah. It was a different sort of arrangement for us. I mean, if you like sit and look at the arrangement, it's like, it's not something that we ever do. I mean, like the second or third chorus comes in after just a half of a verse. and so, we were, at least I was a little nervous about it, because, like all the stuff we do, we're always 100%, into the song, supporting the song. But we're always a little nervous about how it will be received, and if people understand our intentions behind it, and that was just one of the songs where people really understand our intentions behind it, why we wrote the song, the sentiment behind it, why it even exists. And as it turned out, people got it right away, but we never know. There's no, with like that, there's no precedent for that. There wasn't a precedent for us for Nothing Else Matters. So of course, naturally, as human beings, we're going to be a little nervous because there was no precedent.
Mate, I thank you so much for your time. Congratulations on not just a stellar career, but just to have one album like the Black Album is, let alone a ton of them that are in the vernacular, is amazing. So Kirk, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, can't wait to come see you guys, man.